Soul to Take, Chapter 1, by Sophia Adams. Alec's point of view. It's been a year today that the beautiful Kendra Carroll mysteriously showed up in the detention room when she didn't even go to the school. 22nd of September, and with research from my beloved Amy, it turns out that the 22nd of September was the autumn equinox. Remember that sketchbook she left behind? They were sketches, all right. Sketches of me. Normal little Alexander Wilson was writing about a girl. The same girl who was sketching me before we even met. It's been a year now that I've been obsessed with her memory. My grades have been skipping because all I can think about is her. I need to see her again. I need to. It's like a magnetic pull from my core, luring me to her, though I don't know where she is. But yet, I do. I need to know what she is, who she is, everything. Know her pains, her loves, hopes, and fears. Hear her secrets, dreams, passions, and heartbeats. She turned my world upside down and inside out within the 15 minutes we knew each other, and I need to know everything. So that's why I'm here with Aim, Math, Adam, and Ad, waiting for Shane here in his normal parking spot, getting ready to confront him about his sister no one knew about. The sister that showed up on the detention room when she didn't even go to this school. The sister that isn't Olivia Carroll, his sister everyone knew about. And so, we wait. And wait. And wait. And the bell rings. Still no sign of him. Where is he? I holler with rage. I felt like I was going to blow up with the feeling. The one day I actually want to see his ugly, peachy face is the day he doesn't come to school. I can't believe this bullshit. Punk-ass bitch won't show his sorry ass, I said again, with just as much rage as before. Math ended up needing to smack me upside the head to bring me back to earth. I growled low to myself and continued to mutter very colorful words under my breath, wondering where in the living fuck he could be. It'll be all right, Ames started, calming me down the best she could as she put a hand on my shoulder. Let's just get back to class before we get caught out here. Ames has a correct point of view. We should go. He isn't arriving, Math said, backing her up with a special vocabulary, ringing out as usual. He called her by her nickname as well, which was odd for him. The way she got it was a whole other story. Yeah, whatever. Just get attention as usual. And with my normal complaining, we made our way inside and walked to our homeroom class. Thankfully, there weren't any teachers in the halls to wring us by the necks as we walked. We walked in a few classes. My first class was French. Sucked at it, only class I did. I waved to the teacher and tried to muster up my best bonjour before I took my seat. And once I did, whispers murmured through the class, and notes were passed on my subject. I was so sick of the same routine every day. One of the notes made their way to my desk this time. I decided to open it for the fuck of it. Once I did, there was only one word written on the small piece of paper. Outside. I searched around the room to try and attempt to see who exactly sent it to me, and the lovely Amy was sitting behind me as usual, watching me with a serious look as she flinched her head towards the window, indicating me to look out. So I did, glanced out the window, and sitting there, in its normal parking spot, was Shane's Ford Escape, and next to it was parked a GMC Sierra 2000. Sitting on the hood was a girl with fiery red hair and green eyes that shone so brightly I could see them from here. Kendra's point of view. I'm sitting here, on the hood of my baby girl, in front of my new school, listening to my so-called brother give me a speech about who to hang out with, who not to hang out with, what not to do, and who not to go out with, which, and I add, was almost everyone. I looked at him with my famous raised eyebrow that bugged the shit out of him. Go out with? Who said anything about me going out with anyone? I asked. I did. Just now. Didn't you hear me? It's senior year in high school. Everyone has a boyfriend or girlfriend, and I'll die before I let you go out with an idiot. He answered. I growled to myself and quietly cursed his stupidity. Guess you're going to hell. Guess you're going to be going to hell a little bit sooner then, I mumbled to myself before I picked up my voice and responded to him. Shouldn't we head to class now? I questioned. He simply shook his head like it was the only thing his simple brain could muster up. No, we need to bring you to the receptionist desk and say you came from your transfer, and get you to sign some contracts, saying you won't try anything like any of your other schools before you came here. And more contracts, and then you can go to class. He explained, and for the first time since I met him, he did not sound like a complete idiot. So I just let him lead the way as we maneuvered through the halls. We entered from the back, so we had to walk all the way to the other side of the school. Fun, fun. Finally, we arrived at the reception's desk and waited. Shane was very impatient as he tapped his foot on the tiled floor, enough to drive my already mad mind insane. At last, a woman in a grey dress walked over and faced us from the other side of the desk. The only thing I heard as my brother spoke to the lady was wah, 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 wah. Finally, she did something that caught my attention. She used the radio thing they used to communicate through the classes to call someone named, "Will Mr. Wilson please make his way to the reception's desk?" And she hung up the phone thing. With a growl, Shane sighed and wrapped his arms around my shoulders and pulled me close in a very protective manner. This made me wonder who exactly Mr. Wilson was. By Shane's behavior, I was guessing that he was some sort of teacher he didn't like very much. In the distance, I could hear the pitter-patter of footsteps running down the staircase, and suddenly, a boy with black hair and blue eyes was staring back at me. I found myself staring back, as if I found something I was missing. Those beautiful blue eyes that seemed to have trapped the sky in its perfect orbs. Then Shane pinched my arm and brought me back to a realistic world they called Earth. I nodded my head to him and looked back at the lady in the grey dress behind the desk, though I could still feel his beautiful eyes on me. So, where is Mr. Wilson? I asked the lady and nodded to the boy. That's him, Alexander Wilson. He will be the one to show you around the school and have you sign a few contracts, she explained. So, Mr. Wilson was just a boy, and a pretty cute boy, I might add. I turned my head and looked at him with a gentle smile. Pleasure to meet you. I'm Kendra Locaro. I hope we will get along, I said simply. Shane looked outraged at the fact I was being so kind to him. He turned to the lady in grey with his peachy red face. Ma'am, why can't I just bring her around the school? She is my little sister after all, he practically begged. No, Mr. Locaro, you need to head back to class before I need to put you down for detention. Now, Mr. Wilson and Miss Locaro, run along. She then gave a folder to Alexander. She shooed away an angry Shane and flashed me a wink. It took me a second to register her wink until I looked at Alexander. He's tall, maybe 6 feet, bright blue eyes that shone through his shaggy black hair, sharp jawline, and a sharper wood-cut glass. He was attractive, not gonna lie. I continued to study him as we walked through the school. The way he walked was elegant, but at certain points, He would trip over his own 2 feet like a clumsy child. It was cute, and obviously funny. Each time he did, he looked back at me to see my reaction, to see if I was laughing at him, scoffing at him or something. It made me wonder how much my opinion actually mattered to him. How much does my opinion actually matter to you? I piped up bluntly without caring if he found me full of myself or not. Well, since I'm mentioning it, it must matter. Then, how much does his opinion actually matter to me? He stumbled again as he walked, and this time I couldn't help but let out a little laugh. It was so cute how flustered he got afterwards, his face becoming all red like a damn tomato. Well, last year we met, if you remember me, and I'm a decently self-conscious person, and you could make your big brother beat me to hell if you wanted to. So, with everything added up, your opinion means a lot to me. And it's not every day that a beautiful girl actually talks to a freak like me. I was stunned. So many responses ready, but when he called me beautiful, I was at a loss for words. I was going to mention that I remembered him, that I could fight my own battles, that he had no reason to call himself a freak nor be self-conscious, and be all nice, but he had to cut me to the chase. We walked a few minutes in silence, until we both had the same damn idea to break it. We ended up cutting each other off, like what you would see in those dumb cheesy movies. You first, he said. I was just going to say thank you for calling me beautiful a little while ago. I was too stunned to say anything. It's not every day I'm told something as sweet as that. You're pretty attractive yourself, Mr. Wilson. I said with a purr in my voice. That just made him blush even more than was even humanly possible. He was so adorable I couldn't help but laugh. He looked back at me and smiled, and I knew in that moment he could quite possibly be the one for me. If this was the real him. I don't want to explain the whole facade thing I learned others can do to fool you. I don't want to go through that again. Oh, I almost forgot the contracts you need to sign, he said as he pulled out the folders from his bag he previously shoved them into before we left the receptionist's desk. The one edge was slightly crumpled, but wasn't that noticeable. In his bag, I also noticed what looked like a sketchbook. It made me wonder, didn't I lose a sketchbook and pencils when I was here last year? All right, he said as he put the folders down on the edge of the fountain. I know the perfect place to sign these, 'cause it's almost rotation, and these halls are going to be fucking full. And with that, I let him lead the way through my new school, and the school I would be sharing with him. It was silent as we walked, only the sound of our footsteps were audible, and of course the occasional sound of the teachers when we would pass a class. Then suddenly the sound of the bell rang through the halls and the classes of the school. Alexander looked horrified as the doors of the classes opened and students flooded out of their classrooms. They stopped and stared. They were staring at me. Suddenly, I felt a hand wrap around mine and tug on my wrist, roughly. Next thing I knew, the wind was flowing through my hair as I ran for what seemed like my life. Alex's firm grip on my hand shot pain up my arm, but it was drowned out by the soft feeling of his hand in mine. Once my mind finally caught up with the moment, we were running down the halls of the school as students cleared paths for us, as if we were a running stampede that would trample over them if they didn't move aside. I tried to remember if there was ever a time I ever ran so quickly in my life, but there wasn't a time I could recall. Finally, we made it up some stairs and stopped at a door to catch our breath. Alex's face was as red as ever, and I wondered if it was 'cause of how fast he ran, or 'cause of the fact we held hands. Either way, he was still adorable. He propped his hands on the door as he caught his breath, and it looked like it hurt once he moved his hand to his chest and clenched the material black t-shirt, breathing heavily. He was also mumbling something to himself, but I couldn't quite understand what he was saying. No one else can gawk at you. No one else can see you. Not yet. Please, let me keep this time to myself, he begged another entity. I blushed and took a step closer to him, putting my hand on his shoulder. Alexander? I questioned. How much do you feel towards me, exactly? I said bluntly as usual, caring about the consequences, but maybe not enough. He looked back at me completely flustered to the point where he was stumbling over his own words, no less his own 2 feet, as he attempted to run away. Idiot almost fell down the stairs. Hey, but what about the contracts we need to sign? I hollered after him as he made a run for it. Once he made it to the bottom of the staircase, he threw the folder up at me and I caught it with ease. He saluted me like a soldier and ran off. And that's how I spent the morning signing contracts on the roof, which is where it turns out he was bringing me. Once I was done, I got up off the bench I had been sitting on and gathered the paperwork, shoving it into my school bag before I made my way down the stairs and made it across the school to the receptionist's desk. I dropped off the folders, and when she tried to ask me where Alec had gone, I just told her to give me my class schedule. She did, of course, and it seemed that my first class had been French. I spent my class on the roof, so was my second class. It was history, so it shouldn't be very hard. Room 404. So that's where I went. Shane already explained to me that the rooms 100 to 199 were on the first floor. 200 to 299 were on the second, 300s on the third floor, and so on. We had 4 floors here, so it didn't make things too complicated. So up the stairs I went, one flight and another, until I was on the 4th floor. 401, 402, 403, 404, I said aloud as I walked down the hall and spotted my class. Well, it was my first class at the school, ever. I knocked on the door, and a student, a girl with beautiful blonde hair that fell past her shoulders. She was hot for a girl, I must say. She seemed a little gothic, with her heavy dark makeup that brought out her hazel eyes in a mesmerizing fashion. She looked very familiar. I must have known her when I attended preschool here in town, 'cause once she realized who I was, she wrapped her arms around my neck and gave me the tightest hug I've ever been given. Kenny! She hollered in my bloody ear, enough to make me fucking deaf. Let me think. I'm in preschool. Who called me by that name? Chelsea! I hollered back as I remembered my old childhood best friend. This girl was my real sister, not my half-sister Olivia. She is not my real sister. Whose family needed to be related by blood or marriage. Long story short, we sat down, and Chelsea introduced me to her friends, Shayna, Brooke, and Sophie. They all looked the same, blonde or dirty blonde hair. Tall, thin, preppy. They all wore blue skinny jeans. I was okay with it. It's not like I would judge them. But do they really need to be all alike? Chelsea was the only brunette. She reminded me of that popular girl in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. What was her name? The one of the actress. Oh, I'll remember later. Anyway, we sat down and all started talking, but the history teacher was obviously starting to get annoyed and wanted to start his class. So Chelsea, Brooke, and I shut up like good girls while the other two just giggled and whispered to each other. And so he started the class, or so I thought. Miss Lockharrell, please stand, he said in a deep voice. I listened to the command I was given. We are studying the events that to take place between the 1800s and 1900s. Can you name me said event? It was obvious what event he was talking about, due to the posters all over the wall, and not to mention, even Chelsea whispered the War of 1812 in my ear. Of course, sir. The War of 1812 was one of the great events to happen within those 100 years, I said simply. Oh, one of them, you say? Care to elaborate? Of course. Jack the Ripper's year was 1888. He killed 4 people, well, that we know about. His first kill was Mary Ann Nichols, a 40-something-year-old prostitute. She was found in London by some guy named George, something or other, who stumbled upon a heap of dismembered body parts. It turns out that her throat had been slashed, her belly slit, and her vagina mutilated by stab wounds. The teacher looked horrified. So did most of the class. Only one person clapped, though, a boy with shaggy black hair and blue eyes. Alec. He was in my class?